You know what today is? Last day of school. I cleaned out my whole desk and found like 3 pencils I thought I lost forever.
Okay, so this morning I woke up before the sun even came up. I tiptoed down the stairs, so quiet, and the lights on the tree were already glowing. There were presents everywhere, way more than I thought there'd be.
This morning at church, everybody kept saying, "He is risen," and everyone said it back so happy, like it was the best news ever.
I'm a big sister now. My mom and dad came home from the hospital with the tiniest baby I have ever seen in my whole life.
Well, you know what today is? Today's the last day you'll be seeing that intro. We'll have something new. We'll continue on with the next series. But aren't they fun? Bob Davis puts these together and trying to create a moment, a space before we jump into God's Word. Because today is the last Sunday, we'll be talking about joy in this series, Jump for Joy. We began by talking about the joy of Jesus, then full joy, strengthen the stronghold joy, complete joy, hope overflowing joy. Then last week, count it all joy. And today, we're going to finish up with what I consider to be the most difficult and most challenging verse of the entire Bible that deals with joy. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm going to have to sort of fess up a little bit that even as I was going through this series, I had moments in time, events happened where I was not experiencing joy. In fact, I was experiencing anything but joy. Like on Windsor Road the other day, Carol and I were driving along, and we came up behind this car who was driving 30 miles an hour on Windsor Road. Okay, now the speed limit on Windsor Road is 35. And he is driving 30 miles an hour. That's an entire 5 miles an hour below the speed limit. Who does that? Some guy in a black BMW does that. No joy. Huh? He was what? He wanted to irritate me. No joy, Patty. That's right. Maybe irritation, but no joy. And then the other night, Carol and I went to a fine dining restaurant. It was a beautiful evening celebrating, anniversary. I'd mentioned it before. Sat down at a table. We're quiet, just enjoying the ambiance. And then there comes a group of people that sits at a table right behind us, and they were 10 times louder than anyone else on that entire block. No joy. And then the other day, again, I was driving my car. I was running out of gas. The little red light came on, said, "You need to fill me up fast." So I drove to the Circle K on Neal Street, pulled into the pump, $4.34. No joy there. No money, no gas. So I decided I would show them. I only filled up with $10 worth of gas. I bet they took note of that, huh? They didn't even care. No joy, no joy. But we're talking about joy. Jump for joy, rejoice always. And our focus today is from the book of Philippians, where Paul writes to the new believers in the church in Philippi, which is on the northeastern side of Greece. The year's around 60 AD, and Paul is in prison in Rome. Paul is in chains. Paul is going through trials that could possibly end in his execution. And so while Paul is there in this situation, he writes about rejoice always. And this is what he says to us. "Therefore, my brothers, you whom I love and long for, my joy and crown, that is how you should stand firm in the Lord, dear friends. I plead with Euodia and with Syntyche to agree with each other in the Lord. Yes, and I ask you, loyal yokefellow, help these women who have contended at my side in the cause of the gospel, along with Clement and the rest of my fellow workers whose names are in the book of life." And then our focus verse for today, Rejoice in the Lord always. I said again, rejoice. Let's say that last verse in green together. Ready? Here we go. Rejoice in the Lord always. I say again, rejoice. Paul says it twice, as if he's anticipating our pushback about this concept, this way of living, where we are to rejoice always. And he does not stammer. He's not been accidental here and repeated himself. Paul's repetition is a point. And what makes this verse so difficult is the word always. Always. Not sometimes. Not when you feel good. Not when life is good. Not when the finances are okay. Not when the diagnosis comes back as clear. But always. But if today you've got something heavy on you, a fear you can't get over, an anxiety that is overwhelming you, a situation that is consuming you, you hear this voice and you're thinking to yourself, man, I just can't get into this. I can't wrap my arms around this. I don't know. But see, we have to remember, as I mentioned, what's going on here. Paul is in prison. Paul is in chains. He's not on some kind of cushy couch, fine dining, hanging out, and life is good. He is in a place where life is extremely hard and scary and uncertain, and could cause fear. And so he writes to this church in Philippi, a church that is in disarray because of these women, Euodia and Syntyche. And additionally, the believers are feeling the squeeze of culture because the Roman culture does not care for their faith. But into this situation of chaos, Paul dares to write, rejoice. Again, rejoice. You see, Paul knows something. He's got to the point in his life spiritually where a lot of us have just not gotten there yet. He has discovered something that even the bars of prison cannot squelch. And he wants to share it with us so that when we are in our prisons, when we are facing difficult times of life, we too can rejoice as Paul calls us to. And so he simply says, rejoice. Rejoice. And this Greek verb is a command to go and do it. It's not, well, I hope you rejoice. Well, if things are going well, I would like for you to rejoice. If it's possible, if you can get to muster up the strength, rejoice. He says, rejoice. But the problem is this kind of joy, rejoicing is an emotion. And how can anyone command anyone else to experience an emotion? It's like if I were to command you, okay, be happy. Be loving. Be generous. Be kind. Don't be afraid. Just don't do it or do it. But emotions are not like that. They're not like a light switch you can turn off and turn on. That's not how emotions work. So what exactly is Paul doing here as he tries to bring all this idea of joy and rejoicing together? It seems to me that he's trying to make a very clear distinction, a difference between happiness and joy. Happiness is a feeling, and feelings are reactive based on what is going on around us. When life is good, our happiness increases. When life is bad, our happiness withers. It comes and goes like a weather vane. It just sort of points in the direction of wherever the wind is blowing, of things good or things bad happening in our life. And so we feel happy or unhappy based on the world around us. But joy that he's speaking about is something much deeper. It is not a feeling that comes over you. It is a way of life that chooses you. It is the posture of your soul where you have decided and made that determination that no matter what happens to you in life, you will choose joy. That is why Paul can command joy. And that's why it's not absurd for Paul to say, rejoice to people in prison. Rejoice in persecution. Rejoice when life is hard. Rejoice. Because joy can be chosen even when happiness cannot be manufactured. And then he leans into it and helps us understand why, how this works. We rejoice, notice, this is key, in the Lord. Paul is not commanding us to be optimistic. It is not saying, hey, if you're grieving, don't grieve, or if you're in pain, just put a stamp of happy face on your pain. He says, rejoicing is not in your circumstances or my circumstances. Do not rejoice in our circumstances. Rather, put the focus, our eyes on the Lord. It is to rejoice in the Lord who created you, and gave you breath to be here this morning. It is to rejoice in Jesus because what he has done for you. It is to rejoice in the Holy Spirit because what he is now doing in you. The focus is not on what's taking place here. The focus we have to have our eyes on is here. And as we seek God here, we find joy in him, not in what is happening to us. God's love is unshakable. His mercy is unstoppable. And when he says rejoice in the Lord, he's pointing us to a foundation, a rock that we can stand on when the rest of our life is shaking and falling apart around us. So he says, rejoice in the Lord. And then the key word, always. Always. Now, the word always is always hard. No exception, no fine print, no asterisks. Because Paul has earned the right to command us to rejoice in the Lord always, because that is the story of Paul's life. That's why this is so incredible. Paul and Silas, his friend, when they were out witnessing for Jesus, they're captured, they're put in prison, their feet are in stocks, they're in chains, they're beaten. And in the middle of the night, the Bible tells us they were singing hymns of thankfulness to God. Then in the book of Romans, Paul writes that we can rejoice in our sufferings. And then just a little bit later in the book of Philippians, Paul says he has learned to be content in all things. Paul has learned, he has learned over time, over process, to rejoice always. In a sense, always is possible because the Lord, who is the source of joy, is always present. Now hear that. Always is possible because the Lord, who is the source of joy, is always present. God does not leave when the doctor comes to call. God does not ghost you when the world is crashing down around you. God does not go on vacation when you've got a situation that is more than you can handle. We can always rejoice if we think and remember that God is always there. God is always good. God is always sufficient. God is always, always enough. So Paul has the right to say, rejoice. Then he comes back. And I will say it again. Rejoice. This is not accidental. This is personal and is urgent. Because Paul understands us. That when he says to rejoice always, that there's going to be pushback. That we're going to rationalize it out. And say, Paul, you don't understand my situation here. Life is hard. Paul, you don't get it. You don't know what I'm facing in my life. And so he comes back and says it again. Not because he forgot that he already said it. Not because he needed to fill in the gaps with more words. He said it again because Paul has lived this truth. I guarantee you that in prison, there in Rome, in chains and locked up and facing possible death, that Paul is there rejoicing. It is a truth that he has learned in his life and has become part of his life, and he wants to be part of our lives. Well, see, that's the challenge. Then what is it that we can do to help us rejoice in the Lord always? Well, a couple things. Practice rejoicing daily. Practice rejoicing daily. If we want to get our bodies in shape, what do? We exercise. We watch what we eat. We are intentional in our sleeping. And our souls deserve the same care. You see, just like our bodies, our souls grow and our joys grow. Our joy grows with repetition. So what would it look like for you in the morning when you first woke up? And this is challenging because I know this is because the world we live in. The first thing you do when you wake up in the morning is you think about God. Something about God. Not your circumstances, but something true about God. That God is good. That God is merciful. That God's love never fails. What if these were the first thoughts of your day when you woke up? That you begin this day thinking about God and His goodness, and then this becomes the lens by which you look at the rest of the day. That you go out there and you're able to see circumstances and be joyful, and then come to the end of the day. What about, and I thought about this, what if you came to the end of the day and you ended it with a song about God? A song of prayer, rejoicing. You just end the day listening to that song and giving thanks to God for finding you in that day. We had a neat thing happen this morning. It sort of scared Carol and I. We were driving here to church. And we're both just talking about the service and getting ready. Then all of a sudden, we didn't do anything. Our car radio came on. We didn't touch it. I looked at Carol, what did you do? She said, I didn't do anything. Well, I said, I didn't do anything. How in the world did the radio come on? But it just came on. And it was an awesome song. And the song was, Carol, what was Chris Tomlin? What was the song? Do you remember? Forever. Forever you are faithful. And we're just singing and hanging out and coming to church, hearing that song. What if you ended your day with a song about God and you fall asleep and then through the night think about the joy of that day? So practice rejoicing daily, first in the last parts of the day and throughout the day. But then also intentionally choose in the Lord. Hear that, in the Lord when life is hard. This is where faith's rubber meets life's road. When hard things come, and they will come, our human nature is to respond with feelings. How do I feel? What does this mean for me? And these are questions, but these should not be the first question. The first question maybe should be, okay, this situation, I don't like it, but what is God going to do to me and through me in this situation? How does He want to change me because of what I'm facing right now? What is God up to? And realize that God is still in control. God is the one who brings life from death and redeems what is broken, who sees what we cannot see. And this is not a magic formula and make everything perfectly okay, but it is an anchor to sort of hold you in place, to keep you from slipping into despair or responding violently. Practice daily, choosing the Lord. But finally, let your rejoicing be visible. You see, if you have joy on the inside, it will be shown on the outside. If you are rejoicing and God is changing on the inside, it will change how you treat that person at Eden who's rubbing you the wrong way. It will help you be more patient with your family members when they upset you. You will have more generosity when resources are slim. A rejoicing heart inside produces a rejoicing life on the outside, which causes people to respond with rejoicing to the gift of Jesus. Carol and I had this past couple of days, we had a couple instances. Our waitress at our table was smiling. And then this happened twice. They just smiled, really smiled. And guess what happened to us? As they were waiting on us and they were smiling, guess what happened to us? We started smiling too. It was almost infectious. And even Brian last week, he was singing last week. I don't know if any of you noticed it. Maybe you did. He was smiling huge. And I'm standing here singing, and all of a sudden, I'm smiling too. You know, this stuff is infectious, isn't it? It's infectious. Joy is contagious. And if you show joy and you smile and you're blessing people, they will experience the joy of Jesus and be changed. So let's jump for joy. Let's rejoice always. Fair? Dear God, thank you for this time we've had together. Paul had learned something that we are trying to figure out. How to rejoice always. It's not easy, but it is possible. Over time, with repetition, with practice, with leaning into the Lord rather than to the situation. So that joy may be seen by others, the smile, the way of being, the calmness, the love. Dear God, help us to be that kind of people. Help me to be that kind of person. And to help others rejoice in you. And all God's people said,